Booner Pat, I lead from the front.
All right, boys. Lock in.
It's our core foundation, man. Grit.
I'm fired up. I'm fired the fuck up, boys.
It's pumping right now. It's got my juice pumping, boys.
Welcome to Crunch Up Sports with Jeff and Booner. It is Tuesday, December 30th. We are back with another show. It's the day of the doc because Wednesday's New Year's Eve, so we have no show. John Maakaron will be joining us today. And we'll get to talk to the doc, the publisher of Detroit Lions on Sports Illustrated. And Campbell spoke with 97.1. Said some things that people will like, said some things that people might not like. But we're going to talk about it. How you doing, Boone? How you feeling, man?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. It's the doc day. Usually it's tomorrow, so I have a couple days in the week to prepare for it. It should be an interesting show.
Prepared for the doc. It's a week.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? Doc was tweeting stuff out today about Jared Goff. And I told myself in the back of my head, Booner, let it go. You got the show tonight with the doc. If you say something, it's going to set it up to where it's going to be a wild one tonight. And you know what I decided to do? Instead of taking a step back, not saying something, I clicked send, and I got in a Twitter battle with the doc today. And it happened to be on the same day as he's coming on the show. So that should be interesting. Jared Goff conversation. We know how our fan base and Lions fan base feel about Jared Goff. And I have a thought process about the doc today that it might be mean. I didn't even run it by you before the show. Maybe I'll keep it in the back. I don't know. I don't know if I should throw things out there or if I should just keep it like an atomic bomb in my back pocket and just if I want to, like, last resort, throw it out.
You mentioned this earlier about Frank.
Whoa! I thought the doc was joining us right there. I thought you just did like a quick attack with the doc on me, and I was like, "Whoa!"
I don't know. StreamYard's been active. That's weird. It's never happened. I added a video and it just started playing. But anyway, yeah, that's on me. I
do have, though, Jeff. I'm telling you. I do have. I have something with the doc I want to throw out there. I have an opinion, not an opinion about Jared Goff. I have an opinion about the doc.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know if I should give it now. Should I give it now or should I wait?
Yeah, give it now. That's fine. We'll give it now.
I don't know if I should. I don't know. I think the doc, and I love him a ton, so he's probably already watching. And he's coming on tonight. I think the doc with some of his opinions. Like, I was in a Twitter battle with him today with Jared Goff. I don't want to say the doc, the word clickbait. I know he hates that, which I think doc clickbaits. He's going to get mad that I said that. I think he does. I think he's one of the main people who do in this Lions world. But I think the doc forms his takes off of trying to just I don't know if he truly believes all that. I think he just forms them to get Lions fans to click on his stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because I think the Jared Goff thing is one of the dumbest takes I've ever heard in my life. Like, the dumbest.
Well,
I think there's a side of the Jared Goff stuff. Like, you know who actually has good arguments about Jared Goff that I will actually sit back and I think, okay, that's not just for clicks. He actually easy. I think easy. And I could sit around and be like, okay, fair. I think the doc just realized there's a lot of Lions fans that hate Jared Goff right now in the moment. So I'm just going to say I hate him too. And we should go. I don't know. Maybe I didn't explain that right, but I think doc is like he's going to ride the wave with wherever the fans are going instead of going his own way on how it's actually real.
I want to ask him today why that 2 weeks ago he was so sold on Matthew being a bum and the problem, and now Jared Goff a week later is a bum and the problem. When are we not going to have a quarterback that's a bum?
Well, he said for the last 15 years he was going at Stafford, and now it's Goff. He's just a guy that he's a fan. Doc is a fan. He's going to just go based off of emotion and what other fans are doing. That's my point with this. There's no logical thinking behind it, in my opinion. I don't think there is.
We're gonna have that discussion today with them because and among other things as well. Now, there are a lot of things to kind of talk about in terms of Jared Goff, and we'll start with what Dan.
Are we freezing? ETN said we keep freezing.
He just said it's him. It's only one person.
Oh.
Yeah, no one else is having that issue. But Dan Campbell spoke about Jared Goff today, actually, on it was Costa and Jansen. He joined him this morning, and he said, well, he shut it down pretty quickly, actually, to be honest. And he said this quote. He said, Jared Goff is a stud. We're fortunate to have him as a quarterback. He's a winning quarterback in this league. We're thankful to have him. I'm thankful to have him. He's going nowhere. Straight up shut it down. And
there was a lot more to that statement, too. He went on he cut Costa off and essentially just, boom, like hit him with 5-minute dialogue about Jared Goff and how he's going nowhere.
Yeah, he shut it down. I mean, he even said, I think he added on top of that he thinks that Jared had the best year. He had a better year this year than he did last year. I think he added that in the response as well. So he was quick to defend Jared. He shut down all the that conversation as it pertains to Jared. Now, this is the response that everyone should expect. We've been very forthright with what we think about Jared Goff. I think you can win with Jared Goff. I've said that. Listen, he's not some Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. Some people might want to compare him to that. I mean, depending on how far down the Jared Goff path you are, there's people out there that really believe he's on that level. We clearly don't. Me and you have made that very clear. You can win with Jared Goff, but the fact of the matter is he just needs not only the same resources as other quarterbacks needs, but because he's not mobile, he needs more. He just does. He needs an offensive line that is probably, I would even say, like top 3 to 5. Like, you need a very good O-line with Jared, which he's had, and he's had success, and the Lions in one game has been a really good offense. You probably need, like most quarterbacks do when they have really good years, a really good play caller. I mean, this year, let's be real, Jared actually played really well despite the fact that John Morton was calling plays and Dan Campbell. But I think you could still say like a better play caller than he has right now would definitely help him in the offense, because it would help the run game. If you improve the offensive line, it would definitely help the offense in general. I think if you improve the offensive line and get a good coordinator. So you get this man a consistent run game, protect him with a really good O-line. We know what it is. Okay. We know he can play very well. He played really well this year, despite those circumstances, given the circumstances he was in. So, listen, there's no reason in my mind to believe Jared's going anywhere, and people want to restructure him so bad, Boone. You do realize if you restructure Jared Goff, it keeps him here longer.
Yeah, he locks him in.
Yeah, that's the part people forget about. If you restructure Goff, he's here longer. So I'm not opposed to having a conversation at some point saying, hey, let's draft his replacement. I don't think that's a bad idea at all. But I just think with all the things you need to address in the offseason, changing quarterback is something, A, that's going to be very hard to do given his contract, given he's locked in, and B, given there's so many other needs on this football team. It's hard to make that argument. But
yeah.
The only argument that I think is a good one is you're picking high in the draft, and you might not pick this high for a little bit. So that I think that's probably the fairest argument. But other than that, I just don't see a reason to replace him now. So I'm with Dan on that. I think I think Dan's really far down. He loves Goff. He's always loved Goff. That's his guy. So
yeah,
maybe not all the way there, but
I think too, like something that people like don't like when I had these conversations with the doc and I'm arguing with him on Twitter about it, and he's sitting there going, oh, like we need to just draft the quarterback, get the replacement in here, or trade Goff and get a Baker. Like, first of all, like I don't know if you saw his tweet about trading Jared Goff to the Bucs for Baker Mayfield to bring Baker in. Like, you're essentially just swapping, right? Like, you're trying to do something like, yeah, it worked with Matthew Stafford and the Rams. Just because it worked with one team doesn't always make it like, hey, that's if you do it, you're automatically getting a Super Bowl. Like, that's not how this works. And then if you're like one of those guys, Jeff, to where if you're like, hey, I'm good to move on from the Goff contract, let's just draft the replacement. And kind of, I text the doc this today. As soon as you draft the replacement, especially like the first round, and you kind of move on from Jared Goff, that's essentially, in my opinion, Jeff, like, and maybe I'm wrong and looking at it the wrong way. That to me makes it feel like that's like a reset, like you're hitting a reset button. That's how I look at it, right? Like, what was the last quarterback to win a Super Bowl that was drafted, like most recently? Jalen Hurts in 2020. That was 5 years ago, right? Am I missing someone? Stafford, Brady, Jalen Hurts. Who else has won one recently?
No, I besides guys like even the
guys who were in the league long periods of time.
Even if you want to bring up like Super Bowl or like playoff, like deep playoff runs, you'd go
Joe Burrow.
Yeah, like Joe Burrow, number 1 overall pick.
But he was
Daniels,
2020 as well.
Yeah, Daniels, number 2 overall pick. Like a lot of the guys that have these playoff runs end up being those top 5.
But I'm more so talking about like Super Bowl. Like Jane Daniels made a little bit of a run, fall short, right? So like if you do want to be that team that goes, hey, we can move on from Jared Goff, let's draft someone. Like Doc's kind of saying, like let's draft someone, draft Jared Goff's replacement. It minimum probably takes you 5 years to get back on track there, right? Like that's proven. The only part, the closest that we've seen to is Jalen Hurts, who was drafted in 2020 to go win a Super Bowl like that. Before that, I don't know. When was Stafford drafted? When was Tom Brady drafted? Like, you see what I'm saying here? Like, it's tough, man, and it's something. It's really, really hard to do. And I kind of texted Doc this, and he actually just liked it, and then really didn't have anything for it. But it was like, I'll ask you this, Jeff, and I'll ask the people this: what's easier to replace, an elite offensive line or an elite quarterback, or a top 10 quarterback? It's harder to find a top 10 quarterback than it is to recreate an elite offensive line, in my opinion. You could go out there and pay for an offensive line, and you can go out there and trade for an offensive line. You're not going to just go out and find a quarterback, man. Like, you're not. You really aren't. It's hard, too. And I know some people might not like Jared Goff. I think, okay, that's fine. Like Easy, I respect Easy's opinion a ton, and I think he's been very consistent with Jared Goff that he wants a more mobile guy who's athletic and can extend plays. But I think you can also get in this conversation with Easy to where if you're like, hey, if you do put an elite offensive line around him, I'm sure Easy would be like, you can win. We've seen quarterbacks win like that. And you're going to have to deal with that the next 4 or 5 years. Like, Jared Goff is here. It's a fact. Get over it. But I just think like the clickbait stuff that bothers me with the Goff stuff is when like the Doc's being like path to find a new quarterback or whatever his thing is that he's starting up for this, like my journey to find a new quarterback for the Lions. Like, dude, you're not finding one. Jared Goff's the guy for the next 3 or 4 years. I think kind of looking at it in that way is it's I don't want to say irresponsible, but it's just like you're just wrong. Like you're trying to get the fan base going a little bit.
Now, if people want to go and try and do what the Packers did, for example, where they took Jordan Love in the 20s and developed him for 3 years, you can do that. You have to understand, though, that is going to be a quote-unquote wasted pick for the next couple years, though. You know what I mean? Like, that's not going to help you right away. So as long as you're okay with that possibility, then cool. You know, maybe they fall in love with a quarterback. I don't know. Or you get lucky like the 49ers did, and you get a hit on a 7th rounder, which, to your point, you've been consistent with it. The Lions, and I agree with it, should probably just take some flyers sometimes, take some quarterbacks. You never know. Dak wasn't a 1st-round pick. Dak was like found in I think he was a 3rd-round pick. You mentioned Jalen Hurts. He was a 2nd-round pick. I mean, there's some guys that end up coming out. Lamar Jackson was the end of the 1st round. You know, it doesn't always have to be a top 5, top 15 guy. Now, if you do want to draft in the top 15, side note, you're going to want to lose this weekend. That'll help. Not that Dan is thinking that, but from a fan perspective, you probably want that. Let's be real. Because there's a difference between picking 12, 13 versus like closer to 20 when it comes in the draft. So, yeah, I'm not opposed. If you want to go replace Jared at some point and develop a quarterback, fine. It's just he's not going to help you right away.
I think too, by the way, and I think a lot of people might think, like me and Easy argue a lot, we go at it a lot. I think Easy, like what he's saying in the chat, this is why I respect Easy with the opinion with Goff, where he is on the side of like, you can figure it out with Goff. But like this year, like Brad was cheap and didn't do it. That's why you were in the position you were. That's how I look at it. And like you said, I don't hate Goff. I hate the Jared Goff gobblers. And I will say in the past, 2 or 3 years ago, I was a Goff gobbler. I think now it's just more so, I don't want to say like a truther, but more so just hey, I understand and I can admit Jared Goff is not one of those top 5 elite quarterbacks. Like, he's not a Joe Burrow. He's not a Lamar Jackson. He's not a Josh Allen, a Patrick Mahomes. He's not. But that doesn't put him in a category of saying he's not, like he's outside the top 10. Like, he's still a top 10 quarterback in this league. Like Dan said today, like last year he was the MVP candidate, top 6 player quarterback essentially in the NFL. And he had a better year this year. And like you could be like, yeah, the 3rd quarter struggle sucked, all that, but like he was not. And I'll say it is like this with Jeff. You have been in the past someone who has criticized Goff in certain aspects, and I've battled with you on that. you've been more than fair over the last couple of weeks being like, listen, this is nowhere near Goff's fault. Nowhere near. And that's where I kind of respect, like, I understand, like, maybe I'm not a Goff gobbler this year, but I'm more so just like, hey, it's a truth here. Like, this is kind of it's the right side to be on. And the reason I got worked up today on Twitter with the Jared Goff with Doc thing is Doc is so far on one side of this thing to where he's like, blow it up with Jared Goff. I want to trade Jared Goff. I want to go, like him putting out a tweet being like, I'll trade Jared Goff to the Bucs for Baker Mayfield, and we'll give them 2 first-round picks and Jared Goff for Baker. Like, dude, you're too far at this point. And then you want to tell me you don't do clickbait? That's the dumbest thing of all time. Like, that's what you're doing. Like, you're just feeding into the fan base that doesn't like him. Like, I'll listen to fans who have an issue with Goff. Like, I'm fine with that. I'll have a conversation.
Yeah,
but I'm not going to sit here and listen to the dumbest things ever said of all time. I'll have conversations. Me and Easy have conversations all the time about Goff. Good convos. If Easy was on that side where he's like, I hate him, get rid of him forever, you have to admit, like, give the guy some credit. I expect credit when I do well. I hope people give me credit. Give the guy some credit for doing his job very well this year.
Even if, like, and I get the more mobile quarterback thing. I completely understand it. I mean, everyone would prefer a quarterback that can scramble for a first down. It's where the league's heading. No one's denying that. But just to give credit to Goff, I mean, what were the biggest narratives Goff's had coming into this year? The biggest narratives is he's coordinator driven. He needs an O-line. He needs a run game, which O-line and run game are never going to change. But just, again, given those circumstances, the offensive line this year was trash, and the run game was inconsistent. I mean, go look up what he dealt with the last 5 games of the year. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs was averaging like 3 yards a carry. They couldn't run the ball, and you had a mid-season coordinator change. And I love Dan Campbell, but he's not as schematically advanced as Ben Johnson. It's just a fact. John Morton wasn't great. He had his play calling duties taken away, and still Jared Goff going into that Vikings game was like 33 TDs to 5 picks. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good year the last, before the Vikings game, 3 games prior, he had like 300 yards a game, couple TDs. He had no picks. I mean, he's playing really good football, despite, again, all the circumstances around him. So I think that deserves some praise there. Now, it won't change. If you want to win a Super Bowl, protect the guy, get him a run game, which I think if you upgrade your offensive line, the run game was going to be fine. But yeah, I agree with you. You got to give him credit. You have to.
I do think too. And this is a testament to Doc and us and everyone that is in this business and even the fan base. The reason I get so worked up about some of this, Jeff, and you could tell me if I'm wrong, I genuinely believe, like, and you saw it last offseason with Brad Holmes and the Edge, right? Like, Brad hears the noise, and he knows the noise that goes on in this fan base, whether it's the media or it's, again, the fan base. And I want this team to go win a Super Bowl next year. In my opinion, I think just like you heard today, Dan Campbell being like essentially backing Jared Goff for the next, like, he is not leaving. So in my opinion, like, as a writer as the Doc is and us in the media, like, putting the energy towards a quarterback who was never the problem this last year is pointless. Like, it's a waste of breath and it's a waste of time. And like, I'm not saying what we say and everyone writes and everything is going to affect what Brad Holmes does. We obviously knew last year we all asked for edge rushers. Brad heard it, addressed it, but didn't do it. But I would think that this offseason, maybe Brad, I'm not going to say he's going to listen to all of us, but he's going to hear the noise. And Jeff, after not making the playoffs, I'm sure he's going to listen to the noise a little bit more. And wasting our breath and the little bit of push that we all have in the media on the quarterback that's not going anywhere, like, put that effort into getting Brad to get a new O-line. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's and maybe that's just my thought, and it's the dumbest thought of all time. But like, it's just Jared Goff is so far down on the list, in my opinion, because he's not going anywhere and it's not changing. So like, it's a waste of breath. Why not push the conversations and push the pedal and push everything towards forcing Brad Holmes to create a brand new offensive line? That's why I get, you know what I'm saying? Am I crazy for that?
No,
thinking in those terms?
No, I agree with you because to be honest, I think it takes pressure off of the two people that I think deserve the most pressure, and that's Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. I think when you start talking, when everyone's focused on Goff, you're taking away from what everyone should be focused on.
Yes.
And those two should be under the most pressure, the most scrutiny, the most whatever, rather than Jared Goff, which he's not the number one priority right now in terms of what.
And when you have the Doc out here just on Twitter and just pushing the narrative with the again, this is credit to Doc, the platform that he has of just like, it's Goff, it's Goff, it's Goff, it's Goff. Like, dude, you are not helping at all hold the right people accountable. Like, our job is to hold the right people accountable out here and put it to light to the fan base and for the fan base to have a voice within it as well. But like, you're not holding some of these guys. And it's like, yeah, you could still write articles about Brad and Dan, but when you're putting the number one amount of pressure on Jared Goff, it does nothing. It's you're not holding the right people accountable. And that's where I think in this city in the past too, like with Stafford, I think is such a prime example of so many people hating Stafford and putting it on Stafford. And just like with the Doc, remember the Doc said like, for 12 years, I dealt with it with Stafford. The Doc, I'm sure, was putting it all on Matthew Stafford a lot of the times. But it's like, maybe it's the front office. Maybe it's the coaching. They didn't have an offensive line for him. So yeah, and like to Easy's point, let's go back to 2023 when they went to the NFC Championship game. Jared Goff was never the problem. He proved to you that he could win. He proved it. What was the problem there? Brad didn't make moves at the trade deadline, and he didn't have that team fully ready.
Now, Easy asked a good question. I want to bring up what Easy said actually before that. Where's this? Goff has a no trade clause, by the way. So, yeah, that is true. So you're not trading him. So just want to make sure we get that. Let's see. Easy said, outside of the Amon-Ra TD for Campbell's first win in Detroit, has Jared Goff had an elite drive to come back and win a game?
I mean, I'm looking at his game-winning drives right now. He had two this year, one in New York, or one versus the Giants, one versus the Ravens, it says. I'm just reading under a couple minutes. And then last year he had four of them. Year before he had three.
What he's saying is meaning he makes a bunch of plays for them to score. Maybe like because the Giants win. Remember, Jameer took it home, and then
yeah, I guess so. But I mean, they haven't really been in those positions the last few years.
Yeah, it's tough.
They've been up in games. They've been that good.
It's tough because that's not really like I'll get, and this is where I'll side more with Easy. Like that's not really Jared Goff. I don't think is the type of quarterback where it's like. You look at guys like Josh Allen or some of these different kind of quarterbacks. It's just kind of put the offense on me and I'll lead us down and score. I think Jared's a very good game manager. I mean, he's a very good game manager. And I think what he can lead when you mentioned all those game-winning drives is kind of, allowing others to kind of make some plays. His running backs make plays. He puts them in position, but it's not like Goff's over here slinging it around the field to win games. I mean, even the last year against the Rams to open up the season, remember they won in overtime? Like that was kind of the DeMont overtime game.
Yeah. Actually, that's a very good point.
Again, he's not like, Jared 10-yard completion, boom. Okay. He runs for a first down, boom. And then like, that's not really his MO there. But then again, Matthew doesn't really scramble and Matthew's got a lot of those moments. So
no. Yeah. I mean, but it is like a thing though. Like, to be honest, like that's not, you don't want to just be like, hey, can he, you want game-winning drives, but
games last year
he's
and the year
put that team in a position to be up in the fourth quarter quite a bit.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's like those game-winning drives, you're going to put them on DeMont and Gibbs and give those credit. It's just like, yeah, he's not obviously the one doing it, but that's, again, when you build a team around a non-mobile quarterback and a game manager, those are the things you expect is having the run game in overtime that you can go out there and run the ball and dominate, right? Like, and then if you are dominating that, you can play action with Goff. So it's like it goes hand in hand. I mean, you can even look like Tom Brady's won Super Bowls, and he hasn't. I don't think he's had to, fully rely. He's had the defenses that have backed him in some of those years. Do you know what I'm saying? Like you've seen that.
Flannel always brings it up with Tom, which I don't agree with. Flannel's very. I wonder what he thinks now about it, but he always said Tom Brady with all those game-winning field goals. They've always, but Brady helped put him in position to kick field goals. But they had an elite run game though in New England forever. Those Bill Belichick teams had elite defenses and very good run games. So
Goes hand in hand.
They've always had great, which by the way, like this is why I want to talk about this too. And I said this yesterday. I'm sick and tired. I'm sick and tired of not having a great defense. I'm sick of it.
It's the worst, dude.
It's so bad, dude. I mean, you haven't seen a legit, like, feared defense in about a decade in Detroit. I mean, it's been about a decade since you had Sue and the fellas, where you're like the number 2 ranked defense in the league, and you're thinking, wow, this is a really, really good defense. I mean, they haven't had that. And Kelvin Sheppard is the topic of conversation right now. And Dan Campbell was asked about Kelvin Sheppard. Let's hear his response about Kelvin, and then we'll react to it. Here's Dan on Kelvin Sheppard.
But if you could give us your thoughts on how Kelvin Sheppard has done in his first year as defensive coordinator heading into Week 18.
I like Shep. Shep has really grown this year, and I think with any first-time coordinator, first-time coach, you go through a lot, and and you learn along the way. You make adjustments, you find things that you believe in, you throw other things to the side that don't fit you. You find ways to adjust, and it's just part of the process. And I think Shep's done a damn good job. There's always going to be things that you learn from this job, but I like Shep.
Because there's going to be a question about, do you bring in a new offensive play caller? Safe to say you don't plan on making a change at defensive coordinator then.
Listen, I'm not anywhere yet. I got one game left here.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, I'm not about to start going through what I'm going to do here or there. I'm not. I mean, has my mind gone there over right after the game for a day or so, 24 hours? You go through a lot in your head, but most of it is about yourself. I mean, that's what most of it is. I think about myself, because the bottom line is I'm the one who's not done a good enough job here. That's very evident. So, I got to figure out my own stuff here. What do I need to correct? And then I'll start working through with the other stuff later. But we got one game left.
Yeah. So Dan,
the end of that was something
kind of non-committal. Wanted to make sure he gave Kelvin some praise. Sounds to me like typical Dan, where he's like, he's not going to crap on a guy, throw a guy under the bus, but also kind of not committal at the end. Where I thought was interesting is I've had those thoughts like a day or so after a game. I wonder which game, because that
probably a lot of them.
There's probably some games where you're like, dude,
yeah,
like they had the if you go look back at that Giants game and beyond, the amount of big plays this defense has allowed. And that was with Brian Branch for some of those games. So we can't even just bring up not having safeties. Is insane. And then you get to the run defense. I mean, I don't know if I agree with Dan on the damn good job part. I mean, your defense ranks in the 20s with points per game. I mean, they're damn near back half of the league in most defensive categories, but third down defense, they're 11th. And they were 10th. So they actually
I think
they dropped. But a little non-committal there, Boone.
I think what he meant when he said like a damn good job, I think that was more so maybe how I took it was more so as a first-year coordinator with all the injuries and the ups and downs. Like he's done a good job at handling that. Maybe I'm wrong. That's how I kind of took it. But then I appreciate Dan Campbell in the sense that that second half of really being honest and where he's like, I've thought about it already. Because I feel like not a lot of coaches would straight up say that. And Dan in the past, Jeff, when it comes to like players and coaches, he's in the past like protected players and coaches. And that's like that family atmosphere that we talk about where it's like, oh, the family business. Like we don't want to, hurt anyone in the family, or we don't want to, we want to scratch each other's backs. Like Dan has at times defended players and coaches like to the end when he shouldn't be. And you're like, it's a little frustrating, you're like, come on, man, like be honest, like the defense has sucked. This has sucked. He straight up was just like today, hey, I've thought about it. Essentially saying, I've thought about firing Kelvin Sheppard. Like he's had those thoughts after losses. So for me, I'm going to take it as a positive, Jeff. I know that right now, if we did like a If we did odds, it's probably like minus 150 for Kelvin Sheppard to return as the DC. But I might take the plus 250. I might take it because guess what? The one thing when we had this conversation last night, Jeff, the one thing that thought I had in my head, Dan is going into the offseason with the thought of keeping Shep. Like he's not even going to. After this morning, now I know Dan's at least thinking about it and he's considering it. And when this season's over, he's going to take a look at Kelvin Sheppard. And if there is a better option, what this tells me is if there's a better option, if Todd Bowles gets fired, who is it? Jonathan Gannon gets fired, that Dan Campbell is going to have a decision to make. And I think Dan Campbell is going to really, really consider those decisions. I do. I don't think he's
it's like what Steve said. He's definitely undecided, or he would have responded like he did with Goff.
That's exactly what I'm saying. And in the past, he has responded in ways of, protecting and standing up for his guys. He literally straight up said, I have thought about essentially firing Kelvin Sheppard after losses. That's
yeah. I mean,
it's not what you like to hear, but
if you want to get into the damn, and I'm just again, I think he was being a little hyperbolic. Maybe I mean, if you want to get into damn good job, I look at defensive coordinators like Robert Saleh. I look at defensive coordinators like Brian Flores. I look at guys like Dennis Allen. They've done damn good jobs, given what they have, given the injuries, all that. That to me is a damn good job. Jim Schwartz in there. I think Calvin, especially the second half of the year, has been really underwhelming. And if you want to use injuries as a crutch, go ahead. Every team deals with injuries. I showed the graphic. Lions are top 5 in games missed due to injury. So are other teams. They're the only one in the top 5 that will not make the playoffs. So we can keep using the injuries as a crutch, but the reality is Calvin was underwhelming the second half of the year. And again, I'll keep saying it. The Lions are not in the business to groom coordinators. They're not in the grooming business here with coordinators. You know what I thought was very interesting, and this is a slim chance, but I'm leaving the door open. Brian Flores has not signed an extension.
There's no way. There's a 0% chance he comes to you. There's no way. He just beat us twice. Why would he go to a team he beat twice?
Ben Johnson beat the Bears multiple times.
Yeah, but Ben got the head. He got a what is it called? He's a head coach. He's a head coach.
But you'd be a DC for basically a much better team.
There's no way he doesn't. There is no way. Brian Flores, because I saw his press conference today. That man's leaving. I can feel. Yeah, I think he might have an opportunity to become a head coach this offseason.
I don't know, because I've seen the Cowboys want to go get him. If the Cowboys have a chance, you have a chance. Because I know it's divisional.
There's zero chance that happens.
I get that.
There's no way.
I'm giving that man a blank check. To me, Brian Flores, like when you look at all the Todd Bowles and all the, Brian Flores is the equivalent of Vic Fangio, like in terms of that big DC move.
Yeah,
like, that's like a dude who comes in, defense is immediately elite.
But let me ask you, can I ask you a serious question though? Then
give him, hey Sheila, cut the check.
Let me ask you a serious question then. The Vic Fangio.
Yeah.
What's a bigger jump, going from the Miami Dolphins 4 years ago to the Eagles, or going from the Minnesota Vikings to the Detroit Lions?
Hey, them Vikings are poo poo.
They're the same. What are we? We're poo poo too. There's no argument to it. Like if it was after last year, 15-2, you could argue. I mean, they were like 14 wins too last year, anyways.
But they don't have a quarterback. And they don't have like really. Where's that team going in the next 3 years?
It's a lateral move, in my opinion, for him.
You think the Vikings and the Lions is a lateral move?
No, but I just don't think that he would. I just don't.
You get to coach Jack Campbell, Aiden Hutchinson, Kirby Joseph. You get.
Almost said, but what about Van Ginkel?
I mean, you get to go to the Lions. And
I love the idea.
I just steal away from Minnesota. It'd be so good. It's a very, again, it's probably, I understand, slim chance, But man, if he can make it happen, I would be so happy.
Can I ask you one?
Yeah.
Actually, no, I don't want to do it. I'm not saying it. It's a bad one. It's not. It wasn't really a serious like. We need to do this. It was more so just imagine if it happened. What if Dan hired Rex Ryan as the DC?
When's the last time Rex was coaching?
I got it right here. Hold on. I had him up.
That's where I'm curious.
2016, he was the head coach of the Buffalo Bills back in 2016. So he's been out of the league for a while.
He knows defense.
He won a Super Bowl with the Ravens, I believe.
I would be open to that. I like that. I would like that. I'm curious. I mean, Vic Fangio's been in the league for a while. He's an older guy. I wonder why Rex hasn't gotten an opportunity.
I do think there was a world where Rex.
I'm curious why.
I think after his 2 head coaching stints with the Jets and then the Bills, I think I could be wrong. This is a guess. My guess was he just wanted to step away and do media for a while, kind of how John Gruden did it back in the day. When John Gruden just stepped away, I think, and just started, he was just like, I just want to get into media, and then got back into coaching. I don't think that would be that crazy of a thought. And Rex is like, his son's on the coaching staff, wide receivers coach, assistant. I think that would be a good, just something I thought about it. It just popped in my head. Maybe it's a little crazy.
Shout out Mike. He said
Mike said the same thing. Okay, see? I don't know if Brian Flores is going to be available for it, but if Rex Ryan, that man had a Detroit Lions Christmas sweater with the Grinch, and he was mad about what happened. I think he would be like, I'll come there and change things in Detroit. Come on now. You guys want a defense? Remember those Baltimore Ravens defenses forever?
Well, yeah, he's a defense. I mean, he knows defense. There's no.
He had like multiple stints, I think, with the Ravens where he was very good.
Yeah, he now that to me is that's a move, a guy who's, again, his resume. All I'm asking for, if you're gonna move on from your defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, get someone with a resume. I see Steve just put Wink.
No, I like Wink, and you know what? I respect Wink after what he's been through the last few weeks. He's earned my respect, but I'm out on Wink.
No, not the Don.
No. Sucks, but
not the Don, man. Yeah.
I think there's going to be, honestly, what's going to be crazy is like people, you have to like, if I'm Dan, I'm not rushing into making a decision with my DC like instantly. I'm giving it some time. Like see who's available, and then let this thing play out with coaches being fired. Things are going to start happening. That Black Monday is coming up. Is that what they call it? Where everyone just gets like fired? It's like Black Friday, but or is it, what is it called? Like Death Monday or something? I don't know.
I'll ask. I'll bring this up. What if this is also on the table? By the way, if the Lions keep Kelvin Sheppard but bring in like a Rex Ryan type to kind of be like a mentor, like a Chuck Pagano.
I think they would have to be the DC though. I don't know why.
I'm just saying that because I think Colton Pouncey brought that up on Lions Collective. Like you bring in like a Chuck Pagano and he's like a mentor, kind of like in the room with Kelvin. Like
I don't think that. You want to know why I don't think that would work? How was the Ravens defense this year?
Not good.
Yeah, and who was in that? Who got brought in that building?
I agree.
Chuck Pagano.
Yeah,
I love Chuck Pagano, but like when you're not like the head of it, it's a little bit different. You know what I mean? If Chuck Pagano was the head of the defense, I'm sure.
Yeah, if you're like advising, you're still like Kelvin's still calling plays. I mean,
yeah, you might not feel comfortable enough to make. Hey, you're not making those decisions. You aren't calling the plays, right? Like Chuck Pagano, if he's calling plays.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that could be a possibility. I think offensively though, that's not even. I think they're. Now let me throw a scenario at you real quick before we move on.
Here we go. I love these scenarios. I'm having fun.
What if, Dan, you go into next season, right? I just threw out the Calvin situation. What if on the offensive side, Dan Campbell hires new offensive staff, gets rid of John Morton, but keeps play calling. How would you feel?
Oh, man.
Let's say he's like,
I don't think I would like
there, but
I do not think I would like it. And the only reason why is the biggest thing with Dan play calling is I don't think Dan is like, if he was an OC and we never got to really see it, I think Dan would actually not be bad as an OC. I just think like the thing that has turned me the wrong way with Dan calling plays, I've brought this up to you before, Jeff, like in the last few weeks, like it felt like the culture and everything's gotten away. Like guys playing hard has gotten away over the last few weeks. It's like gone away a little bit. And I think part of that is Dan has had to focus a little bit more on play calling. And I think it's taken away from his head coaching duties a little bit. And yeah, I'm sure he would admit it too. Like, yeah, I have to spend more time game planning for the week each week. And I'm not able to go into defensive meetings. I brought up what happened when Dan took over play calling, what dropped off significantly and what happened? Defense just dropped. And you gave up $1 million. And I'm not saying Dan was the reason why, but obviously Dan isn't in those defensive meetings and working with the defense as much when he's the play caller.
I think where Dan struggles,
you lose your grit.
On top of her, because I agree with everything you just said. I think where he struggles when it comes to being a play call, at least he has struggled. I don't know if he can learn from it or what. I'm just saying what he has struggled with is adjustments in a game. The chess match you see between coordinators, coaches in a game. He struggled with that. He has struggled with that, especially coming out of the third quarter, just flat. That to me is an issue. Now they've had issues again with Ben, but it got even worse. It's been even worse with this team. And then the other thing I think I've seen more often than not this year is when you face good defensive coordinators, good defenses, play calling gets a little head scratchy, which, I think that's where my worry is too. I think Dan's best served, like you said, in his role as CEO, kind of the overall monitoring everything, making sure the guys still have, like you said, the grit. I think that's kind of what he is best fitted for. I think the thought that comes to my mind, the reason why I asked the question is I wonder if there's a scenario where Dan goes into the season thinking, am I going to hand off the reins to a new OC, given if we don't have success this year, I might be on the hot seat? Like, does that make sense? Like, I might give control up to somebody else, and it might come back to bite me in the ass again, because he did it to John Morton and took it over because he's like, you just don't get it. This is how I want it. I wonder if he can just be like, all right, I'm going to go trust another, because it took Nick Sirianni. Nick Sirianni jumped right back in, man. He got his heart broke, and he put it in Kellen Moore's hands. And it worked out. And then he got his heart broke again with Kevin Patullo. But I wonder if that crosses Dan's mind, is like, it is a risk. That's why you got to get it right. But
yeah, I think Dan too, like he always does take credit, or not credit, but blame when things go wrong. And I think that's why Dan's like, he's like, if the ship's going down, I'm going to be at the front of it as a captain. I'm going down with the ship. And that's where I think, like with the play call and everything, he's like, man, this thing's going bad. All right, I'll go down with it. I just think and I do think, like, if I'm just being honest, and I know this, people don't like to hear it, and it's like so repetitive. I just think, like, I don't want to put solely blame on the defense the last few years, but like that's what it's been. That's part of why you haven't won a Super Bowl the last 2 or 3 years, is because you just defensively you haven't been able to.
And when is enough? Like, when is enough? When is like for Dan to be like, man, we haven't had a good defense. Like, we need to just. We just haven't. Like, at some point, Dan's got to be like, put his foot down and be like, we just. But
that's like the thing where, and it's like you can like, and I get in an argument with Deezy sometimes where it's like, how much of the blame do you want to put on each side of the ball, right? I just think, like, bottom line, there is blame to go with play calling in the third quarter as being bad, all of that. I just think, like, overall aspect, you look at the last 3 years when you're in this window, like, what's been the biggest problem constantly? Either injuries, but the injuries, it's specifically defense. And like, your offense has been top 5 in the league for the last 3 years. And even like this year, take example of this year, Jeff, like when your defense was good, what was your record? You were like 6-3. And then when your defense drops off and starts playing terrible over the last 4 or 5 weeks, you start losing every other game. You go on a 3-game losing streak, and it's on the back of, yeah, you can blame some of the offense going 3 and out here and there, but it's on the back of your defense just folding completely. Like, you should have lost 4 straight games because you shouldn't have beat the Giants. Like, and it was because of your defense. And it's just like, yeah, we could have those conversations of Dan taking the blame. But if I'm Dan, it's like, Dan, like you're stepping in and taking over offensively because you want to go down with the ship. Respect that. What about defense? Who's stepping in over there? Who's going down with the ship over there? Because for the last 3 years, that's been the Achilles heel of your football team not winning.
It has. I mean, again, the offense isn't absolved from blame this year. Like you said, we agree. The offense, there's so many issues. But defense has been a consistent thing. I mean,
you're bottom half of the league in defense points per game. You're top half in offense. It's an easy assessment.
And we can agree. This is more, even though you'd put blames on coordinator, this is more than a coordinator. This is a Brad Holmes thing too. Like, what the hell have you been doing? I mean, bro, we've been talking about this edge position for years. I mean,
even the corner position, dude, like we've talked about it, and like, yeah, he's addressed it, but he failed essentially, in my opinion, at addressing it because he's drafted Terrion, who's given you essentially nothing in 2 years. Ennis Rakestraw, who's been hurt for 2 years. You let Carlton Davis walk. Like you just haven't addressed it that well.
No. Now he's gonna have to address offensive line. Jared Goff spoke on Frank Ragnow today. He was asked by Gator, will Frank Ragnow return? Remember, that was an assumption. We have not.
I thought it would happen,
fully, but we were like, yeah, well, Frank, and then maybe he missed his shot. He'll want to play. Taylor Decker. Here's what Jared said about Frank Ragnow returning.
And he tried to come back, and obviously had a torn hamstring that prevented him from doing it. Will you be talking to Frank this offseason and trying to convince him to make sure that he heals up the proper way so that he can play with you guys again next season?
No, I don't think that's in the cards at all.
You talking to Frank, or Frank's not going to play next year?
No, of course I'll talk to Frank. I just don't think his interest level is there.
Hold on. Can we just please take a second?
Hey, what about we're allowed to play this? This is for Frank. We love you, Frank Ragnow.
Love you, Frank.
It was fun while it lasted. It was fun while it lasted, brother. I enjoyed the journey.
You tough son of a bitch.
Really enjoyed the journey, Frank. Wish we could have had you back.
Wish you could join us here on this journey, Frank Ragnow.
Forever with us, never forgotten.
I guess you could also say, "Bye, Taylor Decker."
Taylor Decker, it's been a fun time.
Yeah, Taylor Decker. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you would assume. I mean, if Frank's not coming back, I'd be surprised. I don't know if Taylor wants to go through another season without Frank. But dude, like,
that's tough, man.
Why did Jared respond like that? Clearly, he knows something. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, 100%. I think my guess is that he got injured and was like, "Yeah, I don't want to fight back." like I think if he would have came back and there was no hamstring injury and he played well, that maybe there would have been consideration for next year. But I think the fact that he essentially just had a major injury, like the worst hamstring you could get. Dude, yeah, he's probably like, this is.
I just posted a video today. Someone just commented and said he served in the military. Said he had the same hamstring, same injury, and was never.
Yeah. It's that's a tough. He retired because he was, I'm tired of dealing with injuries. And then he instantly, as soon as he came back to football, instantly dealt with a major injury. So he was probably like, he was probably like, this is exactly why I left. I don't want to do this anymore. I love Frank.
He's rehabbing right now, Boone. He's rehabbing right now for an injury he didn't have playing football. I mean, I can't imagine. What that man's thinking. It sucks. I mean, they need. Mike Vellani brought up that Graham could retire. I don't think that's a crazy take. I think.
Well, I don't think Graham's gonna have a job next year.
Well, forcefully retire.
Yeah. But I just don't think he's gonna have a job.
But yeah, I think Graham, you might have to replace No, we'll see. Probably three offensive linemen. Tate Ratledge and Panay are going to be like, it's like that scene in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air where Will Smith's in the house and he's like looking around.
Just by himself.
Yeah, that's Panay. That's Panay. That's going to be Panay with Frank's
Tate's
gone,
going to be in Tate's going to be in like the window,
like it's just going to be like Will Smith, just Panay looking around like, damn, we had a top 5 O-line and ain't a single dude is here. I mean, that's tough. And they're going to have to go out and whether it's stitched through free agency or the draft. I mean, hey, Brad, unless you think Miles Frazier is your left tackle and Christian Mahogany's your guard, I don't know, maybe, but that ain't going to happen. So maybe Miles Frazier can be something. Maybe he starts at left guard.
We'll see. My worry is, if I'm just being completely honest, one of my biggest fears for this offseason when it comes to the offensive line is that, Brad, is this going to be like, we really love what we have with everyone but Graham. Like, we love Mahogany. We love Miles Frazier. We love Manu. We love Tate Ratledge.
We have a young O-line. It's young.
Yeah, like we actually, as much as it didn't seem good this year, we love where we're heading with O-line. That's my biggest fear. I want Brad to go into this offseason, and I don't care about Christian Mahogany. Well, I do. I think Christian potentially still has potential. You get a new left tackle, you get a new left guard, and you get a new center. All three of those are on the table. And in my opinion, you go out there and spend money and trade picks to go get those three, and use picks to go get those three positions. And you know what that does, Jeff? It forces Christian Mahogany, Miles Frazier, and those guys to compete. And if there are better vets in front of them, hey, I'm not saying goodbye forever, but what I'm saying is, hey, if you think they're good young players, they're going to develop. We'll see in a year or two. Just be ready in a year or two when these other guys are off their deals.
Oh, Michael just said we need Caden Proctor with the number 1 pick. That takes care of left tackle. Again, you guys, if you want these players, not that you're rooting for tanking, but you want to lose this week. Okay.
Yeah, I don't really care about winning this week.
You want to lose because I'm telling you the difference between a winning record and a losing record when it comes to the draft, there are like a couple spots difference. And by the way, you know what's more interesting than that? You get a 4th place schedule and the Bears get a 1st place schedule next year. So if you want to add icing on the cake.
Do we know the divisions we're playing?
You would play, it would basically be if you win this week, I think you will play like Rams, Colts, Commanders again, or something like that. I forgot what it'd exactly be. I don't know. Versus like, I don't know the exact divisions right now, but it'd be like those kind of teams versus Titans, Cardinals. Like the difference would be like you're playing better teams, which by the way, like I'll take the worst schedule for sure. I'll take the regular season wins. You're seeing what teams are getting from that. You for sure want that next year. And you pick higher in the draft and you could get a better player. So why not? Why wouldn't you do that? You could trade back, get more capital, whatever you want to do. So yeah, there is a massive kind of scheduling difference with that. Doc will be joining us in a couple of minutes. We're going to take a quick break, hear about our friends over at Sleeper, and when we get back, we'll chop it up. We'll talk to the Doc. We'll have some interesting conversations with the Doc, but we'll catch you in a minute. I've interrupted the video to tell you about our friends over at Sleeper and the new promotion they have going on. A brand new promotion is now live on Sleeper that could be paired with the 100% deposit match promotion that's already been going on. It's a free $20, no deposit required, plus first-time users will also receive 100% deposit match up to $100. Use the code CT Sports. You guys should already be using Sleeper. It's one of the fastest organically growing fantasy platforms in the entire world with millions and millions of active users. They are crushing it. And if your state allows it, you should be using Sleeper Picks. It's a real money product that connects friends over picks. You just choose 2 to 8 of your favorite players from pregame live or across different sports. Pick more or less than the predicted stats. And on Sleeper, you can get up to 1,000x payouts. Share with your friends. Get rewarded together. Don't forget, code CT Sports. Get a $100 deposit up to $100, and you got your free $20 entry. Sleeper is taking care of their customers. Always remember, gamble responsibly. Now let's get back to the video. I just saw this comment too. Is this Gavis? He said, Dan should be fired instantly if we win. Hey, by the way, Dan, he mentioned it. They're playing starters.
They're playing starters, which I listen. I know people with the injuries. Do you want me to be honest? I just don't care, like if they do or not. It doesn't bother me. It really doesn't. It bothers me. I want a better pick. And that I'm with, but I think like people.
But I know what Dan is. They're not gonna intentionally lose.
I mean, a couple years ago, that Packers game, they knew they were out of the playoffs, and they still played everyone.
Well, they tried to. Well, I think that game if the Rams, remember the Rams beat the Seahawks or something like that.
They knew going into the game though.
But they still had a chance at that point.
No, like an hour before the game, they knew they weren't going to make the playoffs.
Oh, that happened. Oh, the game
I remember why we did a watch party at Shout Out Maz, and I miss Maz so much. Me and Maz were actually we did a watch party at Sticks for the Lions game. Before the watch party, we did a show. Me and Maz did a Lions pregame show at the studio. And at the end of the Lions pregame show, we were watching that Seahawks game. We ended maybe an hour-ish or maybe 30 minutes before the game. When they were out in warm-ups, like with 30 minutes left, they said that they found out that all of that went down. And then they just kept everyone in, and they were like, let's just ruin the Packers day.
Yeah.
I love Maz, by the way. Shout out Maz, dude. I miss him. I want to give him a hug, dude. I haven't seen him in so long.
July says Ben's putting a 60 burger on the Lions.
I'm telling you, dude. I'm telling you, he's gonna.
They might pull out some trick plays. They might do some crazy shit, dude. They might do some wild shit. I mean, yeah. Well, let's talk to the man, the myth, the legend, John Maakaron, the DOC, the publisher of Detroit Lions on Sports Illustrated, the host of the Lone Wolves podcast, the host of Detroit Lions on SI on YouTube. Our good friend joins us every week to talk Detroit Lions and, among other things, life, inappropriate topics, whatever the case may be. Doc is there. John Maakaron. Doc, how we doing?
Fellas, Happy New Year. To the chat, hope everybody's having a good holiday. Survive this weather, traffic. Thanks, everybody, for your continued support. I always look forward to talking to you guys. I know it's been a wild, wild time since the Lions season officially, quote unquote, ended. Lots to talk about. I know you guys are right in the mix. You're hitting on all the key topics. Lots to talk about. I think people are starting to truly accept. The Slappies are starting to accept the season's about to be over, and it's time, and you guys are right on it. It's time to repair the Lions, and a lot of work has to happen, and a lot of dissection will take place. But Habibis, everybody in the chat, thank you, and humbly thanks. I really do want to thank you guys for the extended invite every single week. We've been going on a year and a half strong, and 2026 is only going to get better.
That is crazy. I just remember a year and a half
every week.
Doc, you're consistent. Now I see why you've had success, Doc. You're consistent. I'll bring it up to you. We just were talking about it, Doc. What do you think of Dan? Kind of. I mean, you know what it is, Doc. You know what Dan is. He's always going to play starters. But how are you approaching this last game, just from the Doc's perspective? What do you think of this last game? Thoughts around it? Starters playing? What's going through your head?
Yeah, no problem. First, let me clean up what you guys were talking about, because Booner, I am the bastion of facts and not just always opinions. Detroit will play 9 home games and 8 road games. One of the games is going to be internationally. 6 games are against the rivals. 4 games are against the NFC South. 4 games against the AFC East. Now, this part goes to where you finish. 1 game each against the NFC East, NFC West, and AFC South. So those 3, where you finish, those are the opponents. And like you guys said so eloquently, if you finish in 4th place, you'd much rather face the Titans and the Cardinals potentially, and teams that finish in
Colts,
4th
I think,
place,
too, Doc.
those 3 divisions. So those are the facts of next year's schedule. And
that's a big difference.
To your point, I thought about it. Like, to me, this whole thing has been wild because, when you cover a team and you give opinions factually and you give opinions every day, I jumped off the hope train
Well, opinions
after
aren't
the
facts.
game.
Those are facts. Opinions are opinions. Facts are facts.
Absolutely.
So there you go.
And so for me, factually, I gave up on the Lions
I'll educate
season
you.
to win the Super Bowl against the Eagles. So now you keep going through it and you're saying, okay, maybe there's a little bit of hope. And unfortunately, it was going to be tough to win 3 games when factually they were win-loss for 2 months. That's what the team had shown. It's an average football team. So now that the season ends, now that we start to dissect what happens, today was kind of the first day I kind of felt the emotion of like, man, what the hell happened to this football team? What happened to all the hope? What happened to the potential positive side of this team? The offense went away. All the concerns came true. The injuries. So it's just today hit me like, man, that's kind of bummer that this season went this way, that you're an average football team. I didn't think it would go like that in any kind of capacity. I thought the offense would be able to carry this football team, even with injuries, and the offense regressed. John Morton, the concerns that many brought up about his ability to handle this offense. He had a Ferrari, turned it into a Pinto. That's what happened. Dan tried to save it, but unfortunately, when Dan plugged the offensive holes, 5 more opened up in terms of details defensively. The team got out schemed in multiple games. So there's a lot of issues to talk about in regards to the Lions. So this week, it feels like meaningless, but in the end, I do think a lot of people are trying to dissect what happened and quickly trying to turn the page to try and fix what happened to get back. But if you take a step back, I just don't feel like, to me at this point today, and a couple of weeks will go by and the hope will rise. But I just don't think you can just paint a brush and say, hey, get 3 new offensive linemen and it's going to gel and everybody's going to stay healthy and Jared Goff's going to rebound and everything's going to be perfect. It's the Lions. And so I'm happy that potentially the schedule could be easier. I think this is a playoff roster, but my hope meter, it kind of always goes into where did the Lions fit right now in terms of the Super Bowl window. And I just think that this year kind of shows you're a little bit further away than you think you maybe are, but there's opportunities to get back if, like you said, the way I put it, and you guys have said it in a certain way, and a lot of people have said it, this organization now has to get serious about getting to a Super Bowl and winning. Clearly, their original philosophy got them to a point. It peaked. Draft, develop, sign your own. It got you to, somewhat relevancy, but you regressed. Now, the opportunity presents itself, I think, to make some bigger changes, which may result in a little bit of regression, but may end up helping this organization get to the Super Bowl. And we're going to pick it apart. But I look at this week as, losing is key. And I'm just fearful that in any scenario, you just saw Amon-Ra St. Brown get dinged up day-to-day against the Vikings. I just don't want to see Goff get hurt. I don't want to see anybody of importance go down. And the Lions are cursed in some certain way with these injuries the last 2 years. I just say, hey, Jared Goff, get a couple nice feelings, touchdown, do what you got to do, and get them out. This game is, in the end, meaningless. I think there's more value in evaluating, hey, what do you got in a guy like Kingsley Egwakun? What do you got in some younger players? Throw the ball, have Kyle Allen see if he can rekindle the preseason magic with Tesla. Figure other kind of things out and just get out as healthy as possible. I think that's the goal, but you guys are absolutely right. Losing this game helps in a lot of ways. But you could go as high as 12, maybe 13, 14. You can go up in the draft. Take advantage of that opportunity this week.
Yeah, Doc, one of my biggest things that I've had an issue with over the last few weeks when all these conversations kind of arise is the Kelvin Sheppard conversation. We've heard a lot of them, and Jeff and I have talked to a lot of different people in regards to the Kelvin Sheppard stuff. And I brought some facts the other day talking about this. Essentially, I'm going to see if I can find them real quick. I have them right here, Doc. The Detroit Lions defense under Kelvin Sheppard compared to AG in 2024. In 2024, you went from 5th in rushing yards per game to 16th. In points per game, you went from 7th to 23rd. Third down defense, you went from 1st in the NFL to 11th. Fourth down defense, 2nd to 25th. In turnovers, you went from 10th to 20th. So it was almost every single defensive major category you dropped in a significant way, with essentially you could say almost less injuries, if not the same amount. And a lot of people, will bring all these things up, Doc, and be like, hey, Shep, obviously they regressed, but then they follow it up with, but he still should get another chance. And it baffles me in the National Football League when you get paid, I don't know, $5 million, $8 million to be a coordinator, that you get that sort of flexibility. Where do you stand on that? Because in my opinion, and Jeff, I think, has the same one, we both want a new defensive coordinator in here, and we want a new guy who has experienced, been there, done it, and has, whether it's head coach experience or has shown that he could be a good defensive coordinator in the building for this defense next year. Because the defense, quite frankly, the last 3 years has been probably the number one issue that's kind of held you back constantly, like the main underlying factor of this team. What are your thoughts on this whole Kelvin Sheppard thing?
Yeah, no doubt. And Booner, you're spot on. This is where, unfortunately, the outside world was right. Like, if you ask me now, honestly, humbly, what is the percentage of blame to go around? 40% is on Dan Campbell and his decisions. 40% is on Brad Holmes and the drafts the last 2 years and the organizational philosophy not adapting quickly enough. And 10% on Goff, and so that's 10% on injuries. That's how I assign the blame this year. And the part that goes to Dan Campbell is, you can't go into a year that's a Super Bowl window with 2 new coordinators. It just is too much change. There's not enough experience. The league is so tough to win on its own. You didn't win with Ben Johnson, and he was a wizard. You lost in the first round to the Commanders team when you had Ben Johnson and you had a better offensive line. So that was wrong. That was just simply wrong of Dan Campbell. And I do think that experience matters. It simply matters in that Sean McVay out-schemed the Lions. Kevin O'Connell clearly exposed some weaknesses at the end. They found avenues to find weaknesses in the Lions defense at the right time. The run defense dissipated. And it's just wild to think that the Lions staple was stop the run and run the football, and they butchered both in the second half of the year. So in my opinion, you're asking me, and I'll tell you from my heart, I would easily dismiss John Morton and Kelvin Sheppard and find clearly, if you just look at some of the numbers of pressures and who has the best defense, the Broncos are legitimately dominating. Find someone from Van Joseph's staff and bring them over here and run this defense. Find someone with experience, or find someone that has at least experience in a defense that is top 10 that can come in here and motivate. The problem is going to be that the Lions cultivated, in a great piece by The Athletic and Colton Pouncey, they put together this photo and put together this succession plan. They prepared for this. That's what makes it so much worse, in my opinion, that you publicly said, hey, we did this photo and we said focus on culture and focus on the succession plan, and you came up with this. So to me, again, I'll say it again. If you ask me, give those guys some bourbon and let them drink, they'll tell you, like, yeah, we didn't really think we were going to win the Super Bowl this year. That's a lot of change. They're smart men. They're smart. They weren't as aggressive in free agency. They made no moves at the deadline. That's not really the blueprint for a team, especially that's dealing with injuries, to win a Super Bowl. They would tell you, if they got liquored up and said, hey, okay, Doc, we're going to be honest with you, they're going to say, yeah, this was a transition year. We kind of, tank without tanking kind of thing. Especially after the injuries, where they go, all right, listen, we just need some development. We need some luck. We need to see about some things. We need to develop. But if we can get to the playoffs, great. But this football team is not good enough. They didn't make any aggressive moves to say, hey, let's get over the hump and compete. And especially after you see how they played against the Chiefs and Eagles and good teams, it wasn't indicative of a team in regards to how this goes. So if you're Dan Campbell, and you guys have said it, you noticed it. He said, man, I've been thinking about it. If you really are truthful and you're like, okay, let me put aside friendship and loyalty and the development plan, how do I get this team to win? You find the best. And if you're telling me that in the end, you search the entire NFL, all the teams that win, all the context that you have, and you still come up with Kelvin Sheppard, I feel like something's wrong. It's just, I think he'll end up being a great defensive coordinator in 5 years from now. But right now, this football team needs proven, established people that have been around schemes that have been effective. And the Lions, Kelvin Sheppard comes from Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn had okay defenses, but we're still talking about the same kind of things. Bend, don't break at times, inconsistencies, not getting enough pressure, things that we want to see, we haven't seen on a consistent basis. And it's been unfortunate that what happens is it puts a lot of pressure when, for whatever reason this year, If the offense was great, the defense would have a couple plugs or leaks that you couldn't fix. If the defense played great, then Jared Goff was a little bit off and the run game couldn't get things going. And when the offense was okay, then the offensive line would struggle. It just was never put together. So in my opinion, if you want to win a Super Bowl next year, you find 2 new coordinators and you revamp the entire scheme. Maybe not as much man-to-man. Figure out how to effectively run a zone coverage scheme, get the most out of Terry and Arnold and Meek Robertson and Ennis Rakestraw. So to me, I feel like you went into this year with a disadvantage based on the inexperience of the coordinators. And that's unfortunately the result of Dan Campbell's decisions. He's got to own it. And of course he's thinking about it because he knows, damn, that's another year gone by that we didn't win the Super Bowl. And technically the organization has regressed over a 3-year period.
Well, Doc, I'll go to the offensive side because I think we can agree that Dan as a play caller, not ideal. I think he knows offense, difference between knowing offense and calling plays. I think the best thing for Dan is to hand it off to someone who, again, has called plays and done it before. I mean, I keep bringing up the Eagles, but Nick Sirianni was an OC at one point. He still allows guys to call plays. So it doesn't mean Dan's dumb. It just means he might be better suited in that CEO role. In your mind, we mentioned it, you want proven guys, but would you be surprised, kind of a two-parter. One, would you be surprised if they go within again? Hank Fraley, Scotty Montgomery, I think it'd be a terrible decision. And then B, if he does go outside the organization, what are some organizations you're looking at for the Lions to kind of pluck from? Are you okay with maybe going the assistant route, like you said, with the Broncos, getting an assistant over there? Or do you want someone that has some cachet? Where are you at with it, Doc?
Yeah, no, cachet is important and a very important experience. So I would prefer somebody like, I don't know if it's going to happen now. If he found his quarterback, a Mike McDaniel would be great. Definitely. What stinks is, conceptually, it makes sense. If you're running Ben Johnson's offense, can you get somebody that could run it? So that's why, to me, I threw the name out there. I wish they would have maybe, if they were going to go the inexperienced route, they maybe should have just kept Tanner Engstrand and take the lumps there, just groom him and let him call the offense. Now he wasn't a wizard this year with the Jets, far from it, but he knows the exact intricacies and is younger and has been the pass game coordinator of the Lions. You maybe would have wanted to go in that direction. But now I just think that you need experience. You need somebody that has done it before. Maybe a Zach Taylor if he gets cut from the Bengals. Opportunities where you've had guys that can be a little bit innovative. If Dan wants to try it again and wants to buy more time, maybe you look at it and you say, well, do I take somebody from the Bears staff? Do I try a Bieniemy, who's had experience with the Chiefs? He's done it before. And also, too, the reason why Bieniemy is intriguing is he's done it before with the Chiefs. He wasn't credited with calling plays, but at the same token, this year, that run game for the Bears has been widely praised, and Eric Bieniemy has a big part of it. So keep that name in mind in the back of you. He's got the same kind of grit and kind of the coaching mentality as a Ben Johnson. So keep that name in the back of your mind because he does have experience. Brian Daboll is a name. Slowick, I think, is a name that you want to pay attention to, done some good work as well. So it's intriguing. No, I don't think Dan can't. Listen, I think he could do it. Clearly, he can do it. But unfortunately, when you do that, it feels like, didn't it feel like when Dan said we're going to correct this, nothing really got corrected to the degree where you're like, oh, yeah, that really got corrected. I think that Dan needs to keep his eye on the pulse of the team, and he needs to be able to manage the team. I think he involves himself in the offense. He's part of the scheme. But as a play caller, I just think that the run game was atrocious. And the scheme, the advanced analytics say, wow, the run game looks different. Your eyeball can tell you that. You don't have to dive deep into the offense to know that Jared Goff was basically neutered, wasn't throwing the ball deep. And the average air yards went down from last year. The running game went down. The offensive line struggled. So that offense, which in my mind, I'm just thankful that I put that out there. When John Morton was hired, I shared the good things and I shared why he was fired from the Jets. Part of the reason why he was fired from the Jets was when he went there 10 years ago, that run game was atrocious and it pissed off Todd Bowles. So it wasn't a surprise to me that the run game struggled eventually because John Morton that's not his thing. He's a passing guy. And that's why you saw the likes of Jamison Williams kind of come to the forefront. Isaac Tesla looks good. Unfortunately, Jahmyr Gibbs against good teams, 70 yards. That was about it. And then you lost David Montgomery. Anybody find him? He's on a milk carton. Was he on the team this year? Was David Montgomery on the team this year? Did they use him? Was he out there?
No, Doc. I didn't see him much.
I didn't see him that much. So I saw him on Instagram a little bit more than I saw him on the field. So I feel like you got to get back to, and I think you can, if you get somewhat back to an offense that is run and schematically put together by somebody that has an expertise in that area.
Yeah, Doc, that's something I want. So I want to ask you about. Can we just talk about the offensive line real quick? I asked Jeremy Reisman. We had him on yesterday. I said, "How would you fix it? And how do you think they're going to fix it?" It's kind of a two-part question. Let's do this. How do you think Brad Holmes is going to fix the offensive line? And then I want, if John the Doc Maakaron was the GM of the Detroit Lions this offseason, how would you fix it? I want both. What do you think he does, and what would you do?
Good question. Great question, Booner. Here's what I do. Open up the checkbook. I'm dropping $21 million a year on Linderbaum. He's my center. I'm moving Penei Sewell to the left, and I say, Frank, thank you. I say, Taylor, thank you, but please tell the world you're going to retire because we need somebody that can practice. We need somebody here that can consistently play. So thank you for your services. Tell everybody you're going to retire or we're going to cut you. So we need the cap savings. We need the money. So I'm sorry, but tell everybody you're retiring. So my left tackle is going to be Penei Sewell. You got to protect Jared Goff. That's for this team, the biggest investment. So that's that. Your left guard is Christian Mahogany. That's the guy you drafted. He's got some experience. Boom. Linderbaum is my center. I like the experience. 25 years old. He's widely regarded as the best, all pro. The fans love him. That makes the fans happy. That shows them you're serious. That shows, hey, I can open up the checkbook and fix a problem. Graham Glasgow, thank you for your services. We're cutting you. Right guard is going to be Tate Ratledge. Got experience. He was in the top 30 or whatever his ranking was. It was pretty good. And he gained experience. You're my right guard. And unfortunately, you got to see what you got. And you either draft, you can draft somebody that can be a combo guard, tackle that can be both sides or do what you got to do. But you got to see what Manu brings to the table. He's a big man. And you at least start the year with that process and see. And then you get competition. If Mahogany sucks, Miles Frazier takes his job. You have an opportunity. That's me. All right. I spend, I don't care. I move on. I'm willing to drop. Now, what I think Brad's going to do, I think it's hard. I think that, typically free agents stay. And I think that Linderbaum is going to make, 18, 19. He's going to set the market. I don't know if anybody's going to overpay for him, but his services are going to be in demand. So I think what's ends up going to happen is I do think they have to move Penei Sewell. You're not, if you put Manu at left tackle and something happens and he has a rookie mistake or first inexperienced mistake, forget it. The whole world's going to be upset. So starts with, I think Brad Holmes will be happy with left tackle being Sewell, Mahogany. And I think that if they sit down and they go, okay, we missed out on Linderbaum, another team outbid, then you go Tate Ratledge at center and you say, figure it out. And hopefully he gets better and put Miles Frazier at right guard and Manu will be your right tackle. So the key is going to be what happens with Linderbaum. If you pay, I did an article, Lions on SI, clearly identified that you guys love him. The market value is around just the leader in the clubhouse is making 18. Most people believe that he's going to make around $18 million a year. So to me, listen, I don't want an inexperienced center. I feel like that's the engine of the operation. I would get an experienced guy, maybe if it's not Linderbaum, somebody else with experience. This is why the Ennis Rakestraw pick is going to come back potentially to haunt you right now. You could have had Cooper Beebe and he would have did some things for you. So the planning for clearly the retirement of Frank Ragnow didn't go exactly right to help this year, but the offensive line has an opportunity to at least look around to get a center. So to me, free agency is targeted for proven ballers along the offensive line, and you draft on the defense, in my humble opinion.
Doc, Brad Holmes is going to speak to the media next week. How do you think he sounds next week, Doc? You've covered Brad Holmes end of season pressers. I mean, not like well, yeah, you have actually.
All of them, yep.
Yeah, I was going to say, I guess like this because they have missed the playoffs. You've been there, but what do you expect out of Brad Holmes? Is there a part of you that is curious to see if he takes accountability, or is there a part of you that you've been doing this for a long time, Doc? You know how he is. Do you think he comes to that podium, makes excuses? How do you think he's going to approach that end of the year presser?
I think both. I don't think that I think that he's well-spoken. He understands the dilemma. He's going to say, listen, clearly every year we go into it with the idea of being able to win a Super Bowl. This year it didn't happen. We have regressed and we have to take a look at everything. And I don't think he's going to name specifics, but I think he's going to say, he's going to echo Dan Campbell. We're going to take a look at everything to help this football team. And he'll give a general statement regarding the team and say, yeah, we just didn't do a good enough job. There were things that we liked. There were things I think he's going to bring up that his defensive end did get over 10 sacks. He'll bring up that the defensive line, the defense is ranked in a certain way in the top, the pressures and sacks, I think is ranked 4th or whatever. He'll bring up the positives, but I think he'll be honest and humble. He's not going to brag clearly about it. And I think he'll be contrite, but also spin it in a way that's positive, which is, here's what you do. This stuff is easy. This stuff is really, in my mind, I'm not thinking about what his opening statement's going to be. I'm thinking, how's he going to answer when he's grilled? Are you going to change your philosophy? Are you going to stop drafting projects? Are you going to actually talk about why your last 2 drafts only had 13 picks in it and half of them didn't contribute? I want to see the questions and answer period. But the opening statement is going to be clearly, we did some good things well. We liked the development of some of the things that happened. We liked certain things. We were close. But in the end, we fell short because of certain things, and a lot of factors play into it. We got to take a look at everything, and we fell short. It's always our goal. We are committed to winning, and blah blah blah. He'll spin it in a way that, listen, you acknowledge the failures. We didn't meet our goal. Clearly, the season's a failure. But I would do it like this, just because it's funny. I think he would get some attention for it. He should say, listen, we clearly have a goal every year to win a Super Bowl. This year, guys, we fell short. Clearly, we have to look at everything. But I really look at our core. We're good. Did you guys see Jahmyr Gibbs out there? Jamison Williams had a great year, another 1,000-yard season. We feel like we got Jared Goff, one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. Booner loves him and would do whatever to keep him. So I would say, he's going to focus in on the core. We got Aiden Hutchinson signed for a long term. We got one of the premier edge rushers on this team. So he's going to acknowledge. He's going to do both. He's going to acknowledge the failure and rely on the positive, which is his core. And then he's going to get dissected by the media.
But do you think
bottom?
But do you think, Doc, do you think fans should expect a different approach this offseason, or do you think it'll be same old Brad? What's like a fair?
That's
what
the
do you?
biggest
What's
question. That's the biggest question is, how does he answer it? What does he say? And it's clearly, listen, if he's that stubborn to not be aggressive in free agency, to not upgrade in the areas that everybody knows, the offensive line, the secondary, a couple more depth pieces in edge rusher. Clearly, here's a couple moves. If he says, if there's a graphic that says we brought back Davenport, Pascal, Levi Onwuzurike, if he runs it back again with the same guys, you clearly will understand that the support will go away. It'll erode, and the fan base will be quite unhappy. I think you have to adapt. And I do think that with time, they will continue to say we want to draft good football players. I think that clearly they will maybe just modify a little bit of their strategy in the draft to look for a couple guys that end up being guys that fit the area of need and end up kind of being, quote unquote, wink, wink. That was the highest guy on our board. You have to adapt. I mean, I cannot imagine that he saw a regression, sees the sheer devastation that the fan base feels of not making the playoffs. The head coach looks quite depressed and upset that this all went down this way. And if you run it back the same strategy, get out of here. They're going to make a splash signing. They got to adapt. And at the very least, I would expect that the picks that are made this year will all compete to make the team. And the philosophy will be, we're going to try to get these guys to play and compete and not sit and develop. If you draft anybody whiffs as a red shirt, they're going to be angry. You need to maneuver the draft. I do think what's going to happen from my perspective is I think he'll trade one of the 2 players that are under contract for picks, and you'll move on from a Monty, maybe for a 4th rounder, 5th rounder. You'll get some more. So whether you're starting at 7 or 8 right now, I think this is a draft where you need 8 to 10 picks. And you got to maneuver. So I think Brad, if he doesn't trade players, I think that 4th rounder, you maneuver around and you just trade back for additional picks. I think that this year, while last year he maneuvered for a player, I think you maneuver this year, like trade a 2nd for a 4th and a 5th. You move around to acquire more picks this year and maybe sacrifice the 27 draft to move back into some spots in 26. This is a draft you need 9, 10 players, and you got to find it. So to me, from my article where I said, Brad, stop cooking. This year, Brad cooks, and this is his area. So he needs more picks. And I think that's the first strategy. But clearly, guys, you guys know he needs to be aggressive in free agency. Open up that, restructure the people you got to restructure, get as much money as you can that you want, and start spending on proven talent. Let these people believe that you're trying.
Doc, this question's going to correlate right into that. I want you to give us, Jeff and I had the conversation yesterday that if you want to rebuild this offensive line and rebuild some of these pieces, you're going to need some money and you're going to need some assets to do so. And really, what I said the other day, what that means is you're going to have to get rid of some players that were on this team this year who might be under contract, and you trade them, or you just straight up cut some guys. Can you give a couple players in your mind that there's a chance that you feel like they might not be on the team next year, that maybe some Lions fans, as of right now, believe they will be? Are there any players that come to mind for you in regards to that scenario?
Yeah, no, I think a lot of the players, I think the first name is David Montgomery. I feel like if you draft a halfback, I mean, there's one from Alabama that can come in. If you revamp the offensive line, I think David Montgomery's a name. I think the free agents are pretty much set. I did a piece where I did my early predictions of the free agents. I feel like, Reeder and Anzalone are gone. Amik Robertson is going to be interesting to see if he decides to come back. Does he get the raise? What kind of situation there? So there's a lot of free agents. It's like 35, 40 free agents. There's a lot of free agents. In terms of cutting guys, I just think that some contracts that they did set a lot of 1-year contracts. You just move on. I think the free agent priority, there's two of them. Al-Quadin Muhammad, if you can get him affordably, and Roy Lopez, you got to bring him back. You got to bring him back. And I think this year is the year of the restructure. You got to hit up Amon-Ra. Listen, we're going to give you a lot of money up front. And guys, nobody's taking a pay cut. Nobody's going to be like, hey, here's for my $30 million, here's $5 back. That doesn't work like that. What it means is from a salary, you get a big chunk of it up front, and it's converted from a guarantee, I think, into a bonus. You get a lump sum, and you get cap relief. So you can do that with Panay, Amon-Ra, Aleem McNeil. The guy that to pay attention to, I think the name that is starting to swirl, that I think the fans are like, yeah, do it, is Aleem McNeil. So pay attention. I mean, it's cutthroat. I do think there's still potential there, but you have Tyleik Williams. If you get somebody else, if you temporarily slot in Roy Lopez and you draft somebody, could Aleem McNeil, I think that's the name that I think is going to be debated based on his play. Do you expect him to rebound? His play the second half of the year wasn't the best, but most people expect that he's going to rebound. But we expected it. Like anybody that talked about the team said that you're not going to get the best version of Aleem McNeil until 2026. But that's a name to pay attention to, maybe on the chopping block and saying, hey, it's a cap casualty. It happens. But I do think that there's opportunities to get some. Listen, the cap situation should be okay by restructuring Jared Goff, getting the $50 million and spending it in places that you need to. So get ready. We're talking about, so this is year 5, potentially 7, 8, 9 years of Jared Goff. Get ready. But it puts a lot of pressure on Brad Holmes to fix everything that was broken. But you have enough money and the cap will go up. You'll have some reserves. So don't worry about the cap. Worry about, will the decision makers be aggressive to spend outside of the organization? That's the biggest weakness, is they didn't scour the NFL for players that can ball. DJ Reed did not help the team. That's not good. Roy Lopez did, but he's a reserve. He's not taking over the snaps of Tyleik Williams. He did this year a little bit, but in the best case scenario, you want Tyleik Williams to take over the job. So we'll see if they're able to, in free agency, land a little bit higher caliber than Roy Lopez. And I think that there's possibilities that is the case.
Doc, I'm going to ask, let's just get to it. Let's have this Jared Goff conversation, Doc, because I'm trying to figure you out, Doc. You're a tough guy to figure out. All right. Let me ask you this, because we had this conversation a couple weeks ago with Matthew Stafford, and you were very adamant that it was Matthew Stafford's fault. We disagreed, but we had a great conversation, and you covered the Lions. It's Matthew Stafford. He put a lot of blame on him. He's finally gone, yada, yada, yada. Jared Goff's here. Now you want Jared Goff potentially out, Doc? I mean, we got to find, what's going on with you, Doc? Yeah. What's up with you and these quarterbacks?
He hates quarterbacks.
Yeah, listen. Okay. So, no, it's not now. I've been talking to you guys for a year and a half, And I've said I have doubts that the team can win a Super Bowl with Jared. I think you can, but I have, and I said this on the Lone Wolves podcast, and I described my antics and actions on X versus what I said live and in person. So you can go check it out in person. But here's what I've said, okay? I have followed the Lions, all right? So when I grew up, and I respect what you guys are saying, and I respect the fact that there's a lot of Jared Goff fans, and I look at it like this. So I grew up watching football in the late 80s, and I watched the Lions and Rodney Peete and Eric Kramer, and okay, that's a level of quarterback. And then I'd watch always like one game of the best teams. I'd watch the 49ers Dallas series. I'd see the Giants and how they'd play, and I'd see Joe Montana, and I'd see the best of the best play the position. And I'd be like, wow, what makes up this position? Clearly, it's a great position. And I'm like, wow, it's amazingly awesome to see what the best quarterback looks like. And then you go in and you're like, wow, a backup 6-rounder, Tom Brady comes in, and there's a $100 million quarterback, and his name is Drew Bledsoe. And everybody's like, yeah, Drew Bledsoe. Drew Bledsoe go down with injury. And then this miraculous, pasty white dude with no athleticism comes in and just has the grit to take over the position and then runs it. And then the next guy that comes in is Patrick Mahomes. So in my brain, I've always formulated, I want to see that. I want to see a legend. I want to see one of one. Find it. One of the guys that brought Mahomes into the league is on your staff. So in my opinion, I feel like everyone's made this finding a quarterback that can ball and has the it factor like this mythical thing in Detroit that can't happen. So in Detroit, it's a little different. I've seen Rodney Peete bounce footballs. Andre Ware was a big draft pick. He couldn't do anything. Eric Kramer couldn't do much. He won a playoff game and then nothing happened. Then we go to Mike McMahon, and then Joey Harrington's a high pick. Then we get the dream guy, Matthew Stafford. And we get to the playoffs, and it's like, I just go with my gut. I'm like, man. By the time, okay, so 19, you wait, 2020, you wait, 2021, you get to the playoffs, like, okay, 22, 23, you have a good season, but you don't win in the playoffs. So I'm like, man, I'm not feeling it with this guy. Like, there's turnovers at times. He's a gunslinger. The team is not putting much around him. It's just, this doesn't feel right. And then 2017 comes along, and everyone's like, yeah, this guy, pay him $25 million a year. I'm like, no, you're not winning. The formula ain't right. Whatever the percentage blame you want to assign, this isn't it. This isn't Brady. This isn't top shelf quarterback play. This isn't what it looks like. This doesn't look like Joe Montana. This doesn't look like Tom Brady. This looks less than. And you get all these quarterbacks that came through and shuffled through here. And now you get the guy that comes here from the Rams, where their coach says, I had him in the Super Bowl. We didn't do much in the Super Bowl. We scored 3 points. And we moved on and grabbed the Lions guy and won a Super Bowl. And also, too, in my time.
So are you saying they upgraded? Is that what you're saying?
No. Yeah. In my time, I've interviewed some college coaches that played against Goff. And I said, did you ever lose to Goff? They're like, no, we figured out easily how to beat him. And I said, did you ever think? He's like, we never were scared of Jared Goff. And I was like, wow. That's what they told me. And they told me to my face. They said in college.
Doc is lying, dude. Doc is lying.
I'm like, okay, I got it. So now I'm watching them. Year one, it's a free year. Year two, it's another year where you're developing. Okay, you don't get to the playoffs. Year three, you got a shot. It didn't work out. Play calling, Dan Campbell. There's a reason.
Yeah, he balled in that playoff run, Doc. He balled.
Now, last year, you had 15 wins, and then you had a bad performance. There's some in there. Now, this year, I go, okay, this is a year where maybe if it's a step back, Jared Goff's got to step up a little bit. And he had a good year.
Did he not step up?
Listen now. Entering this year, Dan Campbell and John Morton said this offense is now going to be controlled a lot more by Jared Goff. So he's going to call some plays. He's going to be looking at some of these plays from Dan Campbell and checking into a run play or this play. And then you go, okay. And then you go, man, against the Eagles were able to pressure him. That's a problem. Of course, it's the offensive line. He can't extend plays beyond what is conceptually out there. Now, guess what, guys? You are now part of a league that gives you 3 days rest. You play late in the year on a Sunday, then you play on a Thursday. So that means this guy is precise. This guy needs everything to be in a certain way to let this offense purr. It's workable when it's nice. It's doable. But in my opinion, there's going to be times where your left tackle has a shoulder problem. He doesn't practice. Your right tackle can have an up and down game. Your center can age and do something. So in my mind, I just say Jared Goff, humbly, if you want to say he's a top 10 quarterback, great. I'm of the opinion, keep hunting for the best. Number one. Number two in the league, just best of best. And I feel like in my gut, facts, you can look at numbers. You can say, he did this versus this. But I looked at it and said, at times when an elite defense matches up with Jared Goff, if they win, there is a significant disadvantage in that he can't extend plays. It's a weakness. It's a drastic weakness. His style of quarterback can win, but it's aging out in this league. There are less and less pocket passers out there. You got to be able to just what you saw. And then, of course, to ice it, now I'm watching the 49ers and the Bears. Did you guys watch what that looked like from the play of those guys? It's a little different. You just get a couple yards here, a couple yards there on the ground. I just look at it and say, it's going to be, and all I can do is say, I can't publicly say, yeah, Jared Goff's going to win you a quarterback when I've never seen it. That's the definition of doubt. That would be just hoping. Yeah, I hope that Brad Holmes gets it together. I hope that all the defense figures it out. I hope that the coordinators grow. But as a presenter with the position I grade the toughest because you're paying them $50 million, I have my doubts. I doubted Stafford. And in the end, I wasn't debating, do I ever think he could win a Super Bowl ever in the history of Everdom? In 2017, I screamed into the microphone, I just don't believe that my vision doesn't see Matthew Stafford holding a Super Bowl with the Lions. I never pictured he'd go into the organization and quit. I never thought that. I just thought he'd keep trying. Eventually, he wanted out, and he felt like the best chance to win was elsewhere. Here in Detroit, you're building, and it just to me seems like and I come at the game from a defensive side, and I look at it from, like I told you last year, I look at it from how Brian Flores would look at it and how I talk to a lot more defensive coaches than offensive coaches. And I just feel like from the information that I've gathered, and I'm now officially, because that's the number one thing people say is, okay, if you don't want Jared Goff, who would you want? I'm now QB hunting. I am looking if that guy is out there. I've declared that I feel like I would be okay if you moved on from Jared Goff. I would not be devastated. I would not be hurt. I would just say, you know what? I feel like the Drake Mays of the world make me jealous. The Bo Nixes of the world make me jealous. The Jackson Darts of the world make me jealous. That's the way the game is going. And I don't want a mobile quarterback. I just want a quarterback that when the pressure comes, not going to pop the ball loose, not going to get happy feet, not going to have just that difficulty, just a little bit of the ability to move 5 yards and zing the ball to a nice target consistently enough to win games. Jared Goff is a little different. It's going to take a little bit of work. But remember, guys, they won 15 games last year, and the offensive line was relatively healthy going into the playoffs. You had J-Mo, you had Ben Johnson, and that didn't work out. So to me, I'm looking at the complete formula, including Jared Goff, and I look at it and I say, man, I just feel like better is out there. And I feel like if it's out there, keep looking. And I'm starting the process. I've talked to scouts. I'm watching all the tape now I'm starting with Dante Moore, and I'm going to see if there's a name.
Yeah, you're really Dante Moore, man. Lions.
When you guys say, hey, who is the next guy? I present a name that I think could also be a quarterback you can win with. And
also has to be realistic too, because Dante Moore should not be on that list.
Unfortunately, guys, you are going to look at the same pocket passer for 20 years. And that's just wild to me. And I hope and pray that the fan base gets the eventual Super Bowl win. I just think the mountain is a little higher with the presentation that we got. It's still a little tougher. And I want shortcuts. I want to figure it out. And I'm going on that journey. And obviously the tweet that I put out to make a trade for a different quarterback was not met with kindness. And I said, okay, so the fan base maybe isn't interested in the Rams plan where the Rams moved on from Goff. I said, okay, I jotted it down. I am QB hunting. I'm only 4 days into this. I'm only 4 days into this plan. 5 days now, and I'm going along and I'm sharing my thoughts all along the way. But I'm going to give you a name that I hope is an opportunity that presents you a chance to. And you guys brought it up yesterday, which made me chuckle. I said it first before Mike Valeni. I put it out a tweet and on the podcast where I said, I just think that eventually this year might be a year you draft a quarterback and develop him for 3-4 years. And with the expectation that he never sees the field. And that guy might be out there. And I think you should probably consider doing it. And also, I always looked at it too, from the perspective of at the very basic level, competition. Was Stafford ever really pushed by Dan Orlovsky? Is Jared Goff getting really pushed by Kyle Allen? I feel like if you get somebody that is like an Aaron Rodgers to a Brett Favre, that pushes Goff to maybe even be better, to be like, oh shit, I don't just get a free ride in my $50 million. Someone could actually come in this game and take my job. That makes Jared Goff better. So I feel like if there's a name out there, I'll research it. Maybe there won't be. But at least I'm not going to sit there where people say, give me a name and say, I don't know. That's my job, is to go research it. But again, the long-winded answer is I am very, very much that position because it's paid the most, very critical. And I always go with my gut. My gut said no on Stafford. My gut says no on Goff too.
We'll get to mailbag here, Doc. We got some questions for you. First one, we'll start off with Jason says, thank you for the $5. Says, how many games has Jared missed in his career due to injury? Dependability has to be worth a lot in this league with the amount of major injuries.
Absolutely. Very durable. But again, you're only as good as your last performance. And that one smells real bad. That's the last tape I watched. And I can't get rid of that vision of what the hell I just watched on Christmas and the whole world damn saw it.
Yeah. All right.
That wipes out his whole MVP candidate season last year, and as well as this year's as well.
I want Booner. I don't want a maybe. I want the guy. No doubt.
So
about
if
it.
a player,
I
Jeff,
don't want a maybe. I want.
Hold up, Doc. Hold up, Doc.
Guy.
Hold up. I just want to just give an example. Jeff, this is the example that I'm getting from Doc. If a player wins the MVP in the regular season and he loses in the playoffs, you don't want him on their team because that's the last. Like Lamar Jackson, he's out. Done.
Well, Lamar would be that type of player then, Doc.
Oh yeah, Josh Allen won MVP last year. Guess what? Last year, he bad taste in my mouth with Josh Allen. He lost in the playoffs. That's the argument that gets made with that. Instead of looking at a whole season of facts, it's one game.
Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson realistic for the Detroit Lions? I guess factually, I say no.
Well, I would say
I was just giving an example. I wasn't saying those guys for the Lions. I'm giving.
Listen, those guys are getting criticized left and right as we speak too.
Yeah, but that's the thing, Doc, like with your argument about the quarterback thing, it's like, and I understand we all want Mahomes, okay? He wins Super Bowls. I understand that, and you should always try and look for those guys, but sometimes you have to just kind of adjust to the reality of the situation. Those guys are hard to find, Doc.
They're very hard to find.
Now, it doesn't mean you don't stop trying to find them, but
now, Jeff, what evidence? Okay, now putting it back on you guys that support Goff, what evidence tells you that Jared Goff can lead the Lions to a Super Bowl?
I think because maybe we haven't had this discussion. Me and Boone, this is where me and Boone are at. We think Jared Goff is what he is. I think he's like you said, a top 10 quarterback. I think you can win. I think you can win with Goff. You need obviously protection. You need a run game. I think every quarterback would benefit from that, but Goff more specifically because he's not mobile. So I'm very dialed in. I'm not one of those Goff. We're not those Goff guys that are more like he's Mahomes or he's the same level as these guys. We're not that bad, but I think where I kind of chuckle at people, and I mean this with no disrespect to you, Doc, but where people are like, he's not Mahomes or Josh Allen, so we go find another one. I mean, you could say that about 26 teams then. I mean, like, then their quarterback just stinks. As like, reality is when you have, it's hard. It's like, bro, this is the one thing Brad said where I do agree. It is much easier to get worse than it is to get better.
But the league don't stop. The league don't stop. You've drafted Stafford, you've drafted guys. You keep going. But all I can say is, what evidence do you have that Jared Goff, other than hope and seeing that he's played okay in some seasons with an offensive line, what evidence tells you that this guy will be the leader of a Super Bowl team? I feel like the 5 turnover beast will come out next in the Super Bowl, and that's where the Super Bowl loss will happen when he gets rocked by a great defensive coordinator. That's when it happens next. The next bad game that Jared Goff has that's eye-openingly bad will be in the Super Bowl, in my opinion.
It's tough because like the Drake Mays, the Caleb Williams, the Jaden Daniels, those guys are top 5 picks, man. Like you can find a Jackson Dart. You know, Jackson Dart was a late first. Jordan Love was a middle of the pack, middle of the first round. Mahomes was middle of the first round.
But now again, if you follow my ex, I've said, being that if you're going to potentially add many, many more picks, right? The Los Angeles Rams were the team that moved up the furthest. They traded multiple picks. I presented the trade. They went from 15 to 1 to get Goff. Would you do that for Moore or Mendoza? It's potentially on the table. The Rams did it, so Brad Holmes saw it. I presented the exact trade. So go look for it.
So Doc, this is where the opinion side, okay, that's fine if you have that. I'm not going to hate you for it. But like when Dan Campbell comes out today and says Jared Goff's our guy, he's going to be our guy, he's our guy moving forward. Like my point with all of this whole Jared Goff conversation, and I think, again, like I said earlier in the show, I think this is a testament to you, Doc, and I think it's to what we do in the media and as well as the fan base that can move, you know, and have their own movements to actually make Brad listen a little bit to the media, especially after going 8-9 potentially, and him actually have to looking in the mirror and saying, maybe the fans were right, to where Dan Campbell this morning puts a statement out essentially saying, we are not moving on from Jared Goff. Why do we have these conversations still then? In my opinion, it's a waste of time. And yes, I have been, and Doc, you can ask Jeff. He's known me for 4 years in this, since we've been doing this. One of my biggest things that I say constantly is if you want to be a contending team for long term, you have to constantly be trying to draft quarterbacks. That's just, it's a fact. It's what it is. And some people hate it. Majority of the people hate it because they like their quarterback in the town, right? But it's just a fact. I am a guy who have loved Jared Goff, but it's a statement of fact. He can't play football forever for you. And I told Jeff last year, I said, I was probably the first one on it. I said, don't be surprised in the next year or two if there is a quarterback randomly taken in the second, third, like if they take a shot at one and they stash him. But when Dan Campbell today comes out and says, Jared Goff's our guy, I think as a member of the media, when we all have voices and they actually hear us, especially you, Doc, you're in the room, I think it's a waste of time and it wastes holding some of these the right people accountable for what needs to happen this offseason. Brad Holmes needs to be held accountable with the offensive line. Dan Campbell needs to be held accountable with the staff. Jared Goff is so far down on the list of the worries. If you want to win a Super Bowl in the next 2 years, he is the least of your worries. You can win it with him, but it doesn't, if you're going to, because he's going to be here, you need coordinators and you need the good staff and you need an offensive line. It's a fact. So that's why it upsets me and I get fired up when I see every day writers out there being like, Jared Goff, we need to replace. It makes no, like, I get it. It's eventually you have to do it. I have been the number one guy in the last 2 years that it has to happen. But when we talk about putting our effort and our energy into holding people accountable, especially going into this offseason, probably one of the most important offseasons in the Lions' history of my lifetime, I think it's irresponsible to go out there and be like, Jared Goff, I'll find you a quarterback this offseason. I think it's dumb. I'm just being quite honest. And you know I love you, Doc. I tell you I love you all the time. But I think it's like you actually have a voice. Use the voice to go out and put pressure on Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. Like, that's what this offseason needs to be about. I don't give a flying you-know-what about replacing Jared Goff until a little bit down the line. So it's like, let's get over that, and let's go at this offensive line, and let's go at Dan Campbell, and let's get a staff and an O-line, Doc. That's my problem.
Okay. Now, Booner, I respect it because your perspective is if we build an offensive line, you're hoping that Goff does the job.
We've seen him do the job 2 years ago when he went to the NFC Championship game with an O-line. It's not hope. We've seen him do it. The reason you lost that game is because you had Josh Reynolds, which they've got JMO now, and then you didn't have a defense, and you had an incompetent secondary at the time. Dan. But at the time, it goes back at Brad Holmes and that defense. So it's like, no, it's not you hope he can do it. He has proven you can do it, and you just haven't. So why not hold the right people accountable instead of, and I'm not going to say, Doc, the clickbait and all that, but instead of just being like Goff, so more people are going to get riled up. Like, I know what it is, man. I do. I get it. But that's so low on the list. It really is.
I respect your opinion. I respect your thoughts on it. And to me, when you're paying someone $50 million and has the ball every single play on offense, when a defense schemes for you at the highest level against the Commanders in the playoffs, that wasn't the greatest performance. Against the Minnesota Vikings, that wasn't the greatest performance. Against better opponents, I feel like this situation is something to talk about. It's a very important position in my mind. So we value different things. And you say, hey, build the offensive line, build the defense, and Jared Goff will do the job. And that's your perspective, but that's different. The reason why other people say, and the reason why it's a hotly debated topic, is the quarterback position is one of the most important positions in the league. You have a position where you agree with build a team, and this guy can potentially do it. My situation is, as I voice out loud, is I have doubts. That is how I am taking it based on what I saw with how football actually works. Because you're waving your magic wand and telling an organization that's never built a Super Bowl winner, hey, build this, build that, build this, build that. We potentially have the greatest general manager in the history of the organization. He's had 2 bad drafts, and he just got his quarterback killed. So what I'm saying is, part of the safety valve that a quarterback has in 2025 is when the pressure comes and there's a little bit of a challenge, to just try not to take as many sacks and try not to turn the football over. The 5 turnover beast is in there. It's always been there, and I'm concerned it's going to come out at the worst time. That's the nature of the disagreement, and that's my position. And we just disagree. It's normal, but I'm not going to stop talking about it, and I'm not going to stop looking for the quarterback ever until I see the position where I feel like the guy has it. Period.
By the way, someone asked too, Blitzing Lion earlier, I forgot to mention this. What about a college DC? College defensive coordinator. I know actually Jim Harbaugh got Jesse Minter from Michigan. That might not be out of the realm of possibilities. They got some college coaches on the offensive staff though, Doc. I don't know. That's a massive risk though. That's another
no doubt. It's a massive risk. I just think that I feel like at the NFL level, they're coordinated. And then, like I said, I just feel like what can happen is the defense can technically change by firing like a Deshae Townsend, firing the defensive line coach, making some changes to the staff, and letting Kelvin Sheppard still run it. In that sense, continuity in some level is key. So if they don't feel like there's better out there, because if you dismiss Sheppard, you're probably going to have to overhaul the entire situation. And I feel like there's a vote of reason at the table to say continuity is king, but maybe to fine tune the scheme to better suit the players. And I think that's where, if Kelvin Sheppard does stay, that's where you can help build faster. Is, hey, this scheme didn't help the players at certain times be put in the best position to shine. And I think that's where growth can happen. I don't think you go to college with this team.
We appreciate you, Doc. Have a happy new year. Number 1. Number 2, good luck this weekend. The big game. All right.
Are you going to Chicago, Doc?
I would have planned to go to Chicago, but for a meaningless game, it's not going to happen. I'm staying in town and watching it mercifully. And listen, guys, it's crazy. I don't know how it's working with your numbers, but more people are interested in my assessment of the season than anything that's going to go on with this game. The only mission is get in, get out, no injuries. Nobody cares about the game other than hopefully lose. And the mission starts now to rebuild this team. Which offensive linemen, which people in the draft, which quarterback could be out there. It's all about the future. It starts now. It started yesterday, and we're all starting to piece together what the next season looks like. And hopefully, if my little slice of the internet, and Booner, hopefully, if you realize I started podcasting in 2013 screaming about Stafford.
Did you?
Nothing I do
Never knew that.
Clickbait at all. It's my true feeling that I am hunting for legendary quarterback status. That's what my mind wants, and that's what I do. Nothing I do is for rage bait. Why would I rage bait? I'm the luckiest, most blessed person on earth. I talk about the subjects that I'm most passionate about, and if you truly believe I do that, it's my job to explain myself better, to make sure that you know that the shit I'm screaming about is for the intended purpose of, do I feel like this Detroit Lions football team is going to win a Super Bowl? That's it. And we discuss it. And I did say on my podcast, the shit I say on X is a lot of shit for just what is in my head at the moment. I'm kind of thinking it. So listen to the podcast, read it. And remember, guys, there's no shit to click on X but the stories. So if I tweet something and you don't like it, and the tweet gets 5 million views, it doesn't matter to me. I make my money on the website. X is just the best way to describe it, which I said on the Lone Wolves podcast.
Your playground,
X
Doc.
is my unedited. This is what I'm thinking when I post it. If you like it, you don't like it. It doesn't matter to me. But there's no clickbait. I don't need to do clickbait. I technically, that was my thesis to start the X page. If I think this shit, just post it, unedited, unfiltered, no sense to it, no rhyme, no reason, just post it. And I've stuck to it for 15 years. And guess what, motherfuckers? My ass got paid. Happy New Year, Nick.
There you go.
Hey, Doc. Hey, it was a good year, by the way, too. This is our last time for the season. It was a fun season with you.
It was fun. And listen, in my humble opinion, if you really think I'm doing this for clickbait,
okay, Doc.
I think you are. I think there's a side of you that is, which is fine. I think it's okay. You don't need to explain yourself, Doc. Like, listen, you do it sometimes, maybe without meaning to do it. I respect
no clickbait.
it. It's fine.
There's nothing to click.
We all do it. There is a lot to click. Yeah, there is.
I'll say
it's all right to admit it. It's okay.
There's nothing to click. It's just words on an X. I get paid what? X. I get $200 a month.
I tuned into the Doc show the other day. He broke down the difference between clickbait and clicking, and I was like, "It's the same thing."
I'm a rage baiter.
You're doing it. It's okay to do it. I just don't think you like the word clickbait. I don't think it's a bad thing sometimes.
There's nothing to click. There's words.
We've clickbaited on Crunch Time with some posts. It's okay.
There's you react to it.
Part of the game.
That's it. There's nothing.
Part of the game, Doc.
Yeah.
Part of the game.
Lions demand greatness in your quarterbacks. Peace, my friends.
There you go. There you go. The Doc.
I love it, dude. I love it, dude.
Yeah, he's one of a kind, man.
I do love how like people who like write and stuff and like cover teams, like they like clickbait is such a like it touches them differently. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's such a sensitive word, but it's true. Like
it feels like you're discredited. I'm not saying this is what it is, but it maybe comes off as you're discrediting work. I don't think so. I think there is, I think, some healthy clickbait. You have to in any content space, you have to have something, you have to make something engaging. Maybe clickbait, if it's like falsely titled or it's just a lie, that's a big no.
I think everyone clickbaits, dude, and people actually get mad at other people for doing it. And it's like, the people who have gotten mad about it or I've seen commented about it, I'll see their articles and they clickbait, and I'm like,
well,
and then they call it, well, it's just good titling. Good titling. That's clickbaiting.
Everyone on YouTube, the successful people that have YouTube, go look.
Man, it's the worst when people
Mr. Beast.
Clickbaits.
Yeah. Shout out to the DOC. We love that guy, man. By the way, J-Rod, appreciate it. Member for 18 months. Happy holidays, fellas. Appreciate you, J-Rod. He says, we're big for the jobs. Where the F is Klotz.
Appreciate it, J-Rod.
Klotz is sick right now. So hope he feels better. But yeah, Klotz is still. Is he
actually sick?
Yeah, he's sick right now. But he'll probably be there this weekend though. Klotz has been there every single week on game day. He's been doing his thing. So Klotz will be there. He's still texting about Campbell in our group chat. So I mean that's just how it is. Appreciate you all. We'll be live on not tomorrow, but Thursday.
This is our last show of 2024. So
last show of
2025. Sorry. 2025. That's on me.
2025.
Yeah. Hey, what a year, huh? I'm looking at some of the numbers right now. What an incredible year. What an incredible year. Hundreds of millions. Doc talks millions. He says million. We hundreds of millions here at Crunch Time.
you and Doc got a little rivalry going on hiddenly. I know you do. Yeah, it was a great year. Thanks to you guys. It wouldn't be possible without the people, man. You guys make it possible. We appreciate the hell out of you. By the way, get your merchandise, officialctsports.com. Subscribe, hit the like button on the way out.
Yep.
It's free.
We appreciate everyone supporting too, man. It's awesome.
Hit that like button on the way out. Do it. We'll be back Thursday. Love you guys.
We'll see you next year.
See you next year.
Peace. Love you guys.